Hey everyone, welcome to MMA Unwind. Today we're going to be examining Francis Ngannou's journey to this weekend's UFC 260 rematch with heavyweight champ Stipe Miocic. To start, let's revisit that first fight briefly. Coming into this bout, Ngannou was 6-0 in the UFC, all finishes. In December of 2017, he flipped the MMA world on its head with an absolutely devastating uppercut knockout of Alistair Overeem. This knockout will live in infamy. And I'll never forget Anik after that knockout, right? Paging heavyweight champ Stipe Miocic. The prevailing wisdom at the time was that Miocic was a great champ, but was generally keeping the belt warm for this generation's Tyson of MMA, right? Just a month later, Ngannou was booked to fight Miocic. And at the time of the bout, Ngannou could have been found as much as a minus 160 to minus 180 favorite. All in all, it was pretty clear that the UFC may have been putting its eggs in the Ngannou basket. What ensued was one of the best rounds of the year, at least that first round, and ultimately a damn good, albeit one-sided fight. Indeed, Ngannou swung for the fences early in that first round, but Miocic displayed patience, head movement, and veteran tact, using crisp combinations to outbox Ngannou and wrestling to wear him down. No doubt Stipe took his licks, but he ended up dominating the fight en route to a clear decision, 50-44 all across the board. So that implies there was a 10-8 round in there. Next, Ngannou faced Derek Lewis at UFC 229. Coming in, Lewis was 7-1 in his last eight, falling only to Mark Hunt almost 1 year prior. Heading in, this was viewed as an absolute cracker of a fight. Surely there was no way this was going to disappoint or be boring, right? But we all know what happened. Ngannou got a lot of flack in this fight due to the fact that he was primarily more inactive than Lewis. Both men were largely inactive, but I think Lewis did throw a bit more. And ultimately, I think that's what led to the decision going in his favor. And here we have some quotes from that event. Joe Rogan called it, possibly the most boring heavyweight decision of all time. Ben Folks, journalist, said that Derek Lewis won that fight by doing some things as opposed to Francis, who did no things. That's kind of what I was referring to before. Out of the two, Francis certainly seemed to be the more gun shy and inactive one. And then Dan Hardy even tweeted that the performance was so bad that Miocic stole Ngannou's soul. And you even had Dana White at the post fight presser of that event, not even really giving Ngannou a chance to breathe after the loss, kind of shaming him, saying that he bought into that hype from earlier in his career, and maybe Miocic stole his soul, as Dan Hardy said. And a lot of the forums they were referring to it as post traumatic Stipe disorder, PTSD. And Ngannou has this PTSD from Stipe that he really can't be that gunslinger like he was. In his next fight, he took on Curtis Blades in a rematch. He actually won the first fight via doctor stoppage, but it certainly seemed like the UFC was setting up Ngannou for failure once again, pitting him against a formidable wrestler on the cusp of a title shot. However, Ngannou shocked Curtis Blades with a bomb of an overhand right before pouncing with a flurry of strikes that forced the ref to intervene. Francis Ngannou was once again in the winning column. This was one of the few times that Ngannou was actually a pretty heavy underdog. In fact, I think he was about Blades was about minus 350 over Ngannou. Um, but the fight lasted under a minute, and Ngannou was back. He displayed that power that had made him so formidable. Next, he faced Cain Velasquez. Cain hadn't fought in about 2.5 years after that finish over Travis Brown at UFC 200. But given his pressure style, cardio, wrestling, it certainly seemed like if he showed up, half of what he was, he might have some skill set to give Francis hell. Coming in, Velasquez was hovering at about minus 200. So again, you see that Ngannou was the underdog. The fight lasted a measly 26 seconds, and upon that first takedown shot, Velasquez was pelted with what looked like a grazing uppercut that seemed to momentarily put him out, as well as force him to land pretty awkwardly on his knee, which led to a horrific grimace from Cain, and then a few follow-up punches from Ngannou, and that was it. Once again, as the underdog, Ngannou recorded his second consecutive sub 1 minute knockout. This fight was a little disappointing. We really wanted to see what the returning Kane had to offer, but that's the peril of fighting Ngannou, right? All it takes is one misstep, one bad shot, one glancing blow, and the night's over. And here you see Brett Okamoto kind of pretty much summarize the whole fight in just a few words here. Short right uppercut, dropped Kane, landed awkwardly, grimaced as his left knee twisted. And really, it was the last thing you wanted to see. It was a bit anticlimactic. Um, in keeping with that trend of facing former champions, he next faced Junior Dos Santos. Truthfully, this fight was a bit disappointing too, but that's a trend you tend to see when Francis just kind of runs through people over and over again, especially when you think they'll give him a fight. Just over a minute in, Dos Santos launches kind of a sloppy overhand right, misses by about a mile, and is then followed up with a series of punches as he turns his back and tries to avoid them, but he crumbles to the floor before the ref stops it. Um, Junior was actually on a respectable three-fight winning streak over Ivanov, Tuivasa, and Derek Lewis, who he had actually stopped Derek Lewis. Um, and as of now, Dos Santos has not notched another win since that Ngannou fight. In fact, he's been released entirely after the Cyril Gane loss. Now he's talking about maybe fighting Fedor and Bellator or going to BKFC. I personally wish that he would call it a career at this point. Um, Now, in his most recent fight, which is actually almost about a year ago at this point, he took on Jairzinho Rozenstruik, a fierce undefeated kickboxer from Suriname. He just knocked out Alistair Overeem and Andre Arlovsky. Remember that Overeem fight was the one where he was certainly down in the scorecards until quite literally the last 2 or 3 seconds, where he landed a hell of a punch, put Overeem on his butt, and the ref stopped the fight. Bit controversial, but at the end of the day, Rozenstruik walks away with the KO. Um, this fight became something of a meme immediately after it happened. Rozenstruik tried to open with a series of crisp counters, but was immediately blasted with powerful punches from odd angles. And that's kind of a theme that you'll see in Ngannou's fights. Ngannou had once again cemented himself as the rightful contender. Once again, a sub 1 minute knockout. I believe this one was actually sub 30 seconds. First exchange, Ngannou put him on his butt against the cage and put him out. Um, the only problem with his victory was that Stipe was tied up with the Cormier trilogy. And as Stipe eventually won the second and third fights with Cormier, the stage was set for the biggest, baddest rematch in heavyweight MMA, as the UFC puts it now. Um, so, what does all of this mean for the rematch? My primary question surrounding the main event is as follows. So, indeed, Stipe is likely the more comprehensive and adaptive MMA fighter, but if you fight Francis Ngannou, you're running the risk of getting flatlined. Stipe masterfully avoided the KO in the first fight and pitched a true shutout. I was quite impressed. He's the underdog again, and truthfully, maybe for good reason. He'll be entering his 26th minute in the cage with Ngannou, and that's a risky endeavor. At some point, that carefully constructed house of cards that Miocic has built over the first 25 minutes and is looking to build in the rematch can all come crashing down with one punch. Um, it's entirely likely that both men have made significant improvements since that first fight, but will it matter? Will Stipe perform similarly to the first part, and all of our Ngannou 2.0 talk will seem foolish in hindsight? Maybe he's the same Ngannou, but in the same breath, maybe he's improved immensely. Um, in that same token, Stipe's 38 now. He's had great wars with DC and is in all likelihood nearing the twilight of his career. He's talked about retirement in the past. I believe at one point he even kind of flirted with the idea in light of that eye injury from, I believe it was that second DC fight. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if either man wins, and that's really why we watch and love this sport. So, UFC 260 only on pay per view, ESPN Plus. Tune in, and we'll definitely discuss afterward. Take care, everybody.